And we are back with Nora Brown. Now, our last show was amazing. We talked about how what her childhood was like, the mask that she wore, how she coped. I even kind of interjected because I could understand having that background. But it was phenomenal. And those last words that she spoke about Antoine Fisher. Look, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to go back and watch it. It was phenomenal. So, Nora, if you could just take a few minutes to just tell us how we can find you, tell us a little bit about you, and then talk about the vow.
Okay, absolutely. So my name is Nora Brown, or Elnora Brown, and you guys can find me on all social medias at Girl Talk Inc. I have Girl Talk Inc. Ministries page on Facebook. And then I also have a YouTube, and that's Girl Talk Inc. My website is www.girl-talk-inc.org. Don't forget the org part, or you'll run into somebody completely different. And so that's where you can find me at on all social medias. And I'm so excited, first of all, to even be here. Thank you again for having me for another show, another episode. So every time I get to do two, I feel extra special. That's times two. Right now, our organization or our group is doing something that we call the vow. I talked about it a lot last time we spoke. And the vow is basically a rededication back to yourself. Self-love and loving yourself and finding out your identity and who you are as a woman before you get into a relationship. And for women that are already in relationships, they have an opportunity to explore who they are in relationship, what their place is inside their relationships. Because I do realize that we lose ourselves when we get into relationships. So we have an opportunity to rediscover who we are and what we represent and what we love and what we don't love and just all kinds of things about ourselves. So I encourage you ladies to join the vow. It's such a great program, and we're good. It'll be beneficial to you and anyone else, any women or any woman in your life who you think could benefit from. Please send them on my way to Girl Talk Inc. to do the vow.
Awesome. So, Nora, I'm going to ask you this because I think a lot of times as a Christian woman, people hesitate because they feel like self-care is a selfishness. Can you kind of distinguish the two, self-care versus selfishness?
Oh yeah, self-care versus selfishness is two different things. I believe selfishness is when you put your own needs before everybody's, even at their demise, even when you know it's going to harm them in some type of way or it's not beneficial. You find things, you intentionally seek things that only benefit you and don't benefit other people. Self-care is completely different. It's your own evaluation. It's your everyday things that we forget about. For me as a mom, I'm a mom of small kids. So essential things like brushing my teeth and combing my hair, I consider that self-care. And that's my level of self-care. Somebody else's self-care may be going out to the spa and having a massage, just time for yourself. You've already completed all your duties as a mom and you haven't neglected your children, but you've done something extra for yourself that pays attention to just you in that moment. That's completely different from being selfish and greedy and taking from people at their demise. So something that I would consider selfish would be maybe taking love from someone that is not yours to take. So if we were in a relationship with somebody and we're not loving to them or giving to them of our time, we're selfish with our time. That's different from being in self-care when you're going out, for a pedicure, but you've already fulfilled your duties as a wife. You fulfilled your duties as a mom. You fulfilled your duties as a worker. And now you're taking time out for yourself. It's a break from your everyday life. Some people get that very confused. You've been on break the whole time. You're not breaking from anything. You're just not doing anything. So self-care comes after you've done the things that you're supposed to do and you're needing some time to yourself. It's kind of a thing that us busy folks do, not folks that was not busy in the first place. You just been chilling the whole time. So you've been doing self-care the whole time. So it's a difference in that. And so I want people to really understand that. And I think it's completely biblical to love on yourself because, God says, the first person that you will love is yourself, because the Bible talks about to thine own self be true. And if you can't be true to yourself, how can you be true to anybody else around you? And that love that you spread to people starts with you. And you can't love people if you don't even love yourself. And that goes back to my cup, y'all. You can't give what you don't have. So what is in your cup? What is in your cup? You got to fill that cup up. And that's that self-love. You filling all that stuff up. And then you will love from whatever is flowing out of that cup.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I really enjoyed listening to that definition because I think a lot of times people they just don't get it. They say, "Oh, I
No,
don't want to be selfish, so I got to give everything." Well, you're not helping anybody. Like you said, if
exactly.
your cup is empty, you can't give from an overflow. You can't give
Yeah,
nothing.
it's
You ain't
nothing to
giving
give.
down to the bone. Like
It's dry.
it's dry. So you gotta fill yourself up. Okay, I know that that's not our discussion, but I really like the vow. I like the purpose behind it. If you didn't see what the purpose behind it was, go back and look at our other episode. Nora breaks it down. And I encourage you, if you can get any opportunity to jump on to Girl Talk Inc., the Facebook page or the YouTube channel, hop on, watch. It'll be a blessing to you. And the conversation is phenomenal. Okay.
Yes, we love it.
Nora,
Thank you.
we are back to talk about alcoholism and our childhood trauma and the people that we've become despite our upbringing. I say that despite our upbringing.
Yeah.
We're not the statistic. And the note that you left us on last time, you talked about Antoine Fisher, and he asked if he could be happy. People like him could be happy. And you answered the question, yes. And I wanted to say this. The scripture that I refer to a lot, and it has exploded in me, is Romans 12, verse 2.
Ooh, that's one of my favorites, Andrea. Yes.
Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yes.
The renewing of your mind. Now, I'm not going to get technical. Nora could be a little bit more technical than I am. But there are things that go off in your brain, neurons, synapses, all of these things go off in your brain when you experience trauma. It changes the way your brain functions. But when you encounter the living, breathing word of the living God, washes all of that clean, and your neurons start firing off in different directions. You can overcome. You can do better.
Yes.
What you had. You don't have to live in poverty. You can do self-care. You can get away and go to a hotel once a month.
Oh, I'm trying to go.
Right?
April,
it all, right?
Yes, April. Or maybe I'll wait till Mother's Day month.
Oh my
goodness.
I don't know. But I really like, both of us went to Rhema, and one of the things that I take away from it is the natural and the supernatural working together. There are things that we can do in the natural to help us supernaturally face certain things. So we are here today to just really delve into this situation, because I know we are not the only two people that grew up with alcoholic parents and may have even suffered or just really dealt with traumatic things from it. But there is a message to overcome. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Nora, there is something that I learned about. It's called codependency.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about that. Now, the thing that I found out was that codependency is normally occurs in children of alcoholic parents, because that alcoholic parent is codependent to the alcohol or drug addict or whatever. Is codependency something that you felt like you had to face, or that you experienced, or codependent traits in relationships that you had, romantic relationships or friendships or any other type of relationship?
I feel like I don't know if it was codependency, but it was definitely feeling like I had to be in control. I needed to control every situation that I was ever in. I had to be the big dog, and I still spill that out to this day, but it was not the position I always wanted to be in. I talked a little bit about how I had to grow up fast and I was a leader and always trying to fix situations. But I definitely might have seen some of those traits not necessarily in romantic relationships, but in relationships with friends, y'all, because I really ran from romantic relationships because I was just terrified that I would run into an alcoholic, and I didn't want anything to do with men. I was scared of men because of how bad my father treated my mother. So I did not want anything to do with men. So that wasn't a part of my any parts of my life until I was in my 30s, y'all. Well, my first boyfriend was at 25, but even in that relationship, I really depended on him for so much, so much of to feel loved, to feel wanted. I wanted him to kind of complete me. I was looking for my spouse to kind of be all of the stuff that I was not. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I just wanted them to rise up and just kind of fix me. And that was my other half. When I took that other half literally. When people say, oh, that's my better half, I literally wanted my spouse to be my better half. So my standards for a man were so high, y'all, which is another reason why I could never find a man, is because my standards was so high, incredibly high. Like I wouldn't want to be my boyfriend at the time of my thinking because I was holding people to all type of stuff that they could not complete. And I realized that that was something that was broken within myself. Like you can't be my self-esteem. I have to be my own self-esteem. I have to be my own confidence. I have to be my own choices. I have to be this for myself. I can't make you make me confident. You can't be my confidence. And so I was dependent on people to be things for me that I could not be for myself. And if they didn't make me feel good or look good or be good or whatever, I would get rid of them. Like I didn't want nothing to do. Oh, he ain't right because I don't, he don't. No. And I was very judgmental, by the way. And I hate I'm even talking to this about this because now people are going like, oh, she's judgmental. I'm really healing, you guys. Like I'm really being, and I really have, if I'm completely honest with you, I still have some of the traits that I'm talking about right now. I'm still really bossy. I still kind of cringe with things that don't fit my world or my thought process. But I want people to know that I'm working on that, that's a part of myself and that's a part of my life work that I will continue to always work on. And I understand and know full well that that is not okay to be that way. And that is a part of my destructive behavior pattern and thoughts from my childhood trauma. Okay. And so now as an adult, I see the era of my ways and putting people on standards or pedestals that they do not belong on, but that Jesus was the only, Jesus the only perfect person that worked this earth. All of us will fall short. And so now that I took people off of those unrealistic expectations, I can start to see people as human so much more. And so I stopped depending on people to complete me in those areas. Sometimes I struggle with that if I'm very honest. But what I'm saying is when those things happen, you guys, I can totally see it coming and I can stop it. I'm like, oh, Nora, you being judgmental. Oh, you expecting something out of that person that they cannot do. That's not who they are. You can't depend on people to do that for you. You have to be able to do that for yourself. So, yeah, to answer your question, definitely, I feel like it resonated in my relationships, codependency.
Okay. Do you feel like that was a way that you protected yourself from being hurt in relationships? It wasn't so much about being judgmental, but a method of protection?
Yeah, absolutely. Dang. Yeah. So I never thought about it like that, but it probably was. I wasn't judging people on purpose, but it was just stuff that I did not take. I had standards and I realized that some of them were good to have. Like you need some type of standards and rules and measuring stick to say, okay, this is the type of person I want to be with. And if they don't have these character qualities or these things that they possess within their spirit and their soul, then they are not the person for me. And I'm not backing off of that. You give leeway in there, of course, because everybody's not perfect, but you have to have some fundamental values that you don't back off of. For example, Christian, I wanted my husband or my spouse to be a Christian. They needed to love God. I mean, I'm not saying they had to have a perfect relationship or they had to be gung ho and showing up to prayer at 5:00 every morning, but they had to have a relationship with God. They had to have some checkpoint. Do you get what I mean?
Yes,
and so those standards were what I had in place. But I also had to realize that everybody wasn't going to be a Christian. And just because they were not doesn't make them a bad person, just not the person for me. And so I was protecting myself because I wanted a man that was not like my father. Because, you know, as I dug into this side of my, you know, this therapy thing, I didn't say this in my intro, but I have an undergrad in psych. And I also have studied mental health heavily, you know, even after that. And I've done some life coaching. I'm doing life coaching as we speak with women. So I'm constantly evolving and trying to get training. And, you know, I've done my homework. And throughout the process, I found out this little scary thought process, or this really scary statistic. And it's that people who are abused grow up and marry, or they're either become abusers themselves or they marry abusers. Yeah. And so that scared the living crap out of me, right, y'all? So I was like, I don't want to grow up and marry an abuser and become another statistic, or repeat the cycle and become an abuser myself. So I was on high alert, you guys, when I heard that. So anybody had any abusive traits or any type of indentation of that, I ran. I was out of there. Any type of raising a voice or yelling or belittling or any type of thing like that, I didn't want nothing to do with it. And that was in friendships, relationships, everything. Like, no, this is not what we're going to do. And I was so scared to also drink, you know, to drink. I would, you know, people would go out and have a drink and I would be scared to indulge because I didn't want to become an alcoholic. I didn't know what my tolerance level would be. So it was just all over the place, y'all. I was just so scared of everything when it came to running into people like my father.
So I feel like you're telling my story. Like I didn't even offer this information, but you're telling my life.
Wow.
Right? I didn't have a psych degree, but I really find it very interesting, intriguing. So yeah, that's the only difference. I was political science. You're psych, that's the difference.
Yeah. They learned a lot of the same people skills though. Yeah. People science.
Just really looking into, I didn't want an abuser. I didn't want to be the same. I didn't want to perpetuate the cycle. I didn't want my boys to experience those things. So yeah, totally high standards. People are like, you are just ridiculous. And I'm like, you don't understand what I grew up with.
Yeah.
You don't have a clue.
Like, you don't understand.
I'm 25 years old looking over my shoulder. My husband is grabbing my hand. I'm walking down the street. I'm turning around trying to figure out.
Right. Because it's just so scary. Like,
it is scary. It is scary. So let me ask you this. I want to go down this path. I experienced codependence traits as well. So yes, I think it's inevitable because the person that's raising you is codependent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing that you're emulating. You can only emulate what you see.
Right.
Right. Until you get free, like you said.
Right.
Till you get free and you have that advantage and you can have a one-up on the people that started where you didn't.
Exactly. I like that too.
Number one, do you have a relationship with your dad now?
No, I don't. My dad passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he did. He passed away when I was in high school, actually, when I was 17. So he's been gone for quite some time. I'm 36 now, so been quite a while. So, but still, obviously lingering effects.
How did you deal with that? Like, because I know you probably had a kind of a love-hate situation there. How did
it was mostly hate. Yeah, it's dad, at the end of the day, but I just always felt like I grew up in a single parent home. Like when people would ask me about my upbringing, I would always say a single parent home. When my dad passed away, I didn't know how to feel. I felt like I was sad for my mom because she had to raise all these kids by herself. My mom and dad were in a co-parenting situation at the time because they had already divorced at the time. And so they were co-parenting, but I just told you I had 13 siblings. So basically he left her with all of these teenagers. So we were all between the age of 12 to 21. So it was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and a 21-year-old. So my mom was left with all those teenagers. So I was, of course, a mature 17-year-old. And so I took the adult route and looked at the adult view of it, of this lady has to be stuck here raising all of these kids. So I went into helper mode, I went into my helper mode that I always do. And I became my mom's little helper because I wanted to help her with her kids because I felt so bad for her, being left with all these kids. I never really grieved my dad's death. You know, I think at one point I pretended like I was sad because that's what people wanted to see, right? Because we buried him in his hometown. So when he died, I went down to his hometown and they buried him, and all his cousins and aunts and all his family was there. And my family, I say his because I'm not as close to my family, but some of them I am close to, and they are good people, and if they see this, I don't know. I don't want them to feel like they're not. But at that time, I felt like I needed to perform for them, just like I had always performed for people. And so I went down there and I was sad. I was broken about the fact that I was going to have to face this by myself with my mother, but more not really sad about my dad's passing because I was not close to him at all. I was in fear of him. Like I never really had a good relationship with my dad. And so at that time, I was sad, but I was sad for different reasons. But I used those tears to look like I was grieving his death. Does that make sense? So I never really grieved him in that moment. And so, that was that situation. But, as I went into it, later, I had a chance to really, truly grieve my father, but it just made me a maniac. Like I was just an overachiever in everything. Like I went to high school and started going super hard because at that point I needed to make my mom proud because, here she is raising all these children and by herself. And I didn't want her to feel like she wasted her time. Does that make sense? I wanted to do something phenomenal or something to, to signify that it was worth it. Like, you did really well with us. And so that was the reason why I did. Like I joined Girl Scouts. Like it was crazy. Like my senior year, I joined Girl Scouts, the Key Club. I was in like these competitive events, anything I could join. I went to VOTEC, graduated so I could graduate early, did some competitions and, won. So I ended up doing like speech competition. So public speaking is my thing. So a lot of people don't know that about me either, but I've been public speaking for years, like on a level where I was winning national titles. I remember going to New York when I was 18 and I won. And my topic that I spoke on was child abuse. Children of alcoholics was my topic. And I actually won first place at nationals in New York City, y'all, up against a whole lot of other folks from all over the nation speaking on child abuse. And so like I really turned my pain into my passion, truly turned my pain into my passion at that point. So yeah, it's just been, it's been traumatic.
My dad is still around. And
really,
I think like for a long time with me, it was just, I wanted him to to play an intricate role in the lives of my children because I was like, my childhood was crummy. So maybe in your latter years, you'll be able to redeem yourself and have this fantasized relationship. Well, yeah. When my oldest son was about 8 years old, he got to see, can't hide that anymore, right? You can't protect your kids from that anymore. Like, I couldn't, they were like, well, why does he act like that? Well, let me tell you a story. Mom didn't have the best upbringing. And he's like, they're baffled. For me, like at this point, I realize, okay, this is not, it's not going to be the relationship that I want ever. But I can love him as somebody that was, gave me life and that does the best that he can and loves the way that he can. Yeah. But I don't expect a fantasy. But I had to come to that conclusion because I hoped that it would turn for so long. Yeah. And it just didn't.
Me too.
How was your relationship with your mom now?
My relationship with my mom was so close. We were so close. I would almost call it enmeshed because it was a word that I found out when I was in therapy. And it was unhealthy to some point because we bonded through trauma, right? And me and my mom are, we really are far apart in age. My mom had like three generations of children, and she's 71 now and I'm 36. She had me when she was about 34, which is the same age she had me, but she started having kids at 16. And so she's had kids her whole life. And I'm so glad you asked me about my mother. I love my mother to death. She is just like the apple of my eye, and she can do no wrong in my eyes. However, this year, I realized something about my mom, and I realized that she made a choice to put me in this situation as an adult. She was the adult in this situation. She could have left. She made a conscious decision for 20 years to allow this man to basically destroy her and the children, that came with that. And I had to sit with that. And I've been sitting with that for about 3 weeks now because it did not dawn on me until that recent ago. So I really don't have a whole lot of words for how I feel about it. And I have not even had a conversation with her about my feeling right now. And me and my mom are really close. So this is not, I talk to her about everything. But this just recently, while doing the vow, I came to the conclusion that we have to take responsibility for the trauma that we bring up on ourselves. Now, as a child, I didn't have a choice, but as a grown woman, as an adult, when you allow your kids to stay in situation and you are perpetuating the abuse. And that is why when you see an abusive man go to prison, the woman usually goes with them because you're an accomplice, right? And I just could not see my mother like that. You become an accomplice to that as a mom.
One more time.
Accomplice. You become an accomplice. And that's why when people murder people and you're the getaway driver, you get charged for the same crime because you were complicit.
Say it again.
Yes, you were complicit in that act. And women need to take responsibility for the abuse that is happening to them because you're a full-grown woman and you chose to sit here and allow people to put their hands on you. You chose to stay in a relationship when people are being unfaithful or being dishonoring to you, whether that's friendships, relationships, or whatever that may be. So when I took the vow, Andrea, literally, that is what made me dig deeper into my mother. As I was saying the words to the women on my live chat, it dawned on me that is exactly what my mother did. She perpetuated the abuse. She allowed she was an accomplice in my demise growing up. She needed to take some responsibility in this. Okay. So what I was left with and what I've been sitting with for 3 weeks is that my mom is now paralyzed on her right side. She's an older lady. And I just not for the life of me could think of why she would ever be in this situation that she was. This is a sweet, not like I had my mother on a pedestal. There was nothing she could do in my eyes that was ever wrong. And even at this moment, as I'm speaking to you, I still feel the very same way. Does that make sense? Yeah. Even with what all I know, ain't nothing you can tell me about Ruth Ella Scott. Not a thing. Okay, so anyway, so that's what I'm sitting with. But what I'm realizing that even though I honor her and I love her that much, I'm seeing her as being held responsible and I'm loving her anyway. And I think that's what comes with my unconditional love for my parents, is that even though they dishonored me in this situation and they did not honor my childhood and I had a terrible childhood, I still have respect for them, but I understand what they did wrong and I'm giving that back to them. I'm giving them back their stuff. That pain that they left me to hold, woo, I'm giving it back.
Girl.
I'm not sitting with it anymore. Woo. You get what I'm saying? Yes. I'm not sitting with it anymore. We can't hold it anymore. My really good friend who also does interviews with me, she's a licensed therapist. She is so great. Her name is Gail.
Yeah.
Such a phenomenal, Gail Cato, such a phenomenal therapist. And she was speaking to me over a call and she was talking about how she had to give her ex-husband back his stuff. And I said, well, I'm going to give my parents back their stuff too, because they hurt me. They left me with a whole bag of hurt, a whole laundry bag full of pain. And I handed that back over to them while I was doing this vow. That's not my stuff to carry. Those were your broken things. That was your situations. That's giving you back your stuff.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh my goodness. That is so good to get that off of you.
Yeah.
Stop carrying it. Stop.
Yeah, I'm not carrying it. No.
And give that back to them. Now you don't have
Yes.
to call them up and be like, "Hey, look, I'm giving you
Exactly.
something." But you can do that
Personal
and
from
just
your
like just
bedroom.
get
Yeah, it
get
doesn't
rid of
require an
it. I'm
email.
done. I'm done. It's over.
Exactly.
It's over. I ain't taking this no more.
Yeah, I
Look.
love it. You know what? Yesterday we talked about that too, is getting our stuff back from these broken sexual
Mm-hmm.
relationships we were in.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to call and say, hey, we want our stuff back, return the sender. We don't like it. We need a refund.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed. I needed a refund for the years that I lost in my
Yes.
childhood due to abuse and trauma and all the domestic violence that I had to endure at the hands of my father and at the complicity of my mother. She needed to take credit for what she did and to take responsibility and accountability. And even if they don't take responsibility, and this is the key part, even when people don't take accountability and responsibility, it is still your responsibility to get healing and getting folks back their stuff, whether they want it or not.
Yep. Because
So,
you are responsible for your reaction,
yeah,
response, all of that. That is okay.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
before we close out, this is what I want you to do. I want you to look in the camera and I want you to speak to people that are still bitter at their parents for the abuse that they went through, that may have picked up a bottle themselves,
Mm.
are continuing that cycle of alcoholism or drug abuse. I want you to speak to them and I want you to speak healing into their lives and tell them how they can get out.
Okay. I just want to say to the person that is, from this situation, who I know all familiar. First, I want to tell you that you're not alone, that you're never alone. You weren't alone as a child and you're not alone now. That the Holy Spirit, I don't know if you're not a believer, you may not know or be familiar with what I'm talking about, but the Holy Spirit sends a comforter. He's a comforter. He's always with you, no matter what situation you may be in. If you're feeling broken or if you're feeling down, know that you can move. That small, still voice that you have that's giving you a little bit of hope, whether it's because you stumbled across this video or that someone may be talking to you. I want you to understand that there is hope for you. There is love for you, that there's an opportunity for you to be better than what you see for yourself right now. That just because someone else was broken and mistreated you, but that is not who you are. That a rose is still a rose. And just because people didn't treat you like the rose that you are does not negate the fact that you are a rose. You have to understand who you are and what you are, and more particularly, whose you are. You are a child of the Most High God, someone who picked you out and loved you on purpose. Not by an accident, on purpose. He purposed out for you in this moment to hear my voice, to let you know that you are not forgotten, that you are loved, that you are appreciated, that you are special, and that you have a call on your life that is bigger than what the situation that you are in right now. He's a redeemer of time. So even though you may be drunk, you may be strung out, you may be having sex with multiple partners, you may have thought that you have done every bad thing that a person could do, that you're so separated and you're so broken, that God is still there, that he is loving you even in all of this, that he is loving you, that you are worth it, that you are worthy, and that we love you too. That there is a place for all of us at this cross, that there is room for broken people, that there is room for drug addicts, there is room for children of alcoholics. That, like I said in the previous video before, the question that you may ask, is there hope for a girl like me? Absolutely. I want to tell you, absolutely. Is there hope for a guy like me? Absolutely. And that we love you and we're cheering for you, and that we're hoping that you make a decision to stop what you're doing and think about the words that you heard here tonight, that God is on the throne and that he is here for you in each and every situation. And that I know that it's hard and it will be hard, but he will stand with you in and out of these times. That's what I want to say to you guys. And I love you. I'm so happy to be here to share this with you too.
Nora, that was amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to say this to you. You matter. you are worth it. You're worth fighting for. Hey, relationships matter.
Yes.
Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.
Have a good night.